Everyone says the 90s was peak Mercedes over-engineering, but the 2000s looked over and said, "Don't count us out just yet." Today, we're counting down the decade's most over-engineered Mercedes. Machines so complex, even their mechanics needed therapy. Number 6. Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Did you know the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren was the most powerful German supercar of the 2000s? Yeah, hard to believe considering that one moment it was a comfy Mercedes with cup holders, and the next it was a fire-breathing McLaren rocket ship. Brilliant? Absolutely. Over-engineered? Oh, without any doubt. In fact, the whole thing started as a corporate what-if. Mercedes owned 40% of McLaren back in the early 2000s. They were winning in Formula One together, and someone probably thought, what if we put our superpowers together and build the ultimate road car? Well, on paper, it was a perfect plan. Mercedes had the luxury, the money, and the marketing swagger. McLaren had carbon fiber wizardry and race-bred engineering. Put them together, and you'd expect the automotive equivalent of LeBron James teaming up with prime Michael Jordan. Instead, they built an over-engineered car that didn't really know if it wanted to sip champagne or crush skulls. For better understanding, you'll have to look at the insane numbers. A hand-built 5.4-liter supercharged AMG V8 that made 617 horsepower and 575 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 in just 3.6 seconds. Oh, and the top speed? 208 miles per hour. To put that into perspective, at that time, Porsche's Carrera GT had 605 horsepower, BMW's V10 M5 was down by over 100 horses, and Audi's R8 hadn't even grown into its big boy pants yet. The SLR wasn't just in the fight, it was walking into the room asking, "Who wants problems today?" But Mercedes wasn't done. Because when you're Mercedes, too much isn't in the vocabulary. So they dropped the 2006 SLR 722 edition, named after Sterling Moss's legendary Mille Miglia win. This one had 641 horsepower, lighter wheels, stiffer suspension, carbon brakes the size of manhole covers, and an attitude problem. It was faster, meaner, and handled like a German engineer's revenge fantasy. But here's where the over-engineering truly kicks in. The SLR looked like a fighter jet married the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL from the 1950s. Super long nose, butterfly doors, and side exhaust pipes that could roast your ankles if you weren't careful. It even had a rear spoiler that popped up to act as an air brake, because stopping at 200 miles per hour is an engineering challenge most of us don't think about. And despite all that tech and performance, the SLR also came with a 5-speed automatic transmission, heated seats, navigation, and yes, cup holders. The only problem was that it didn't really fit anywhere. Too refined to be a raw supercar, too wild to be a comfortable cruiser. Reviewers at the time didn't know what to make of it, but that was kind of the point. The SLR McLaren wasn't trying to copy anyone, it was trying to be everything at once. Number 5. Mercedes-Benz S-Class W220. Imagine it's 1998. The old W140 S-Class, the legendary bank vault on wheels, has retired. It was huge, expensive, and so ridiculously overbuilt that even dictators thought it was a bit much. Mercedes needed a new series of S-Class to carry the torch. Their solution? A leaner, lighter, more modern S-Class for the early 2000s. Enter the W220, a car that promised cutting-edge engineering and sleek good looks. On paper, it was the perfect antidote to the W140's excess. In reality, it became the poster child for why over-engineering without execution is a recipe for disaster. At launch, the W220 amazed the auto world to the extent that many critics started calling it the best car in the world. This was a perfect example of Mercedes flexing its engineering muscles. For starters, it introduced airmatic air suspension, a computer-controlled setup that adjusted on the fly to keep you gliding over the road like you were in a hovercraft. Then came Distronic radar-guided cruise control. It was the first radar-assisted adaptive cruise control system worldwide, the kind of tech people assumed wouldn't exist until flying cars showed up. You also got keyless entry and push-button start, ventilated massage seats, and eventually the revolutionary pre-safe system, a setup that could sense an impending accident and automatically tighten your seatbelts, close the windows, and brace the car for impact. No other luxury sedan at the time had anything close to this level of futuristic trickery. Mercedes didn't just build a car, they built a crystal ball for the future of the auto world. But here's the catch. The crystal ball cracked because behind all the shiny gadgets, Mercedes was quietly cutting corners. This was the Daimler-Chrysler era, where accountants had more power than engineers, and it showed. The bodywork was thinner, the materials weren't as solid. Owners who had just paid over $100,000 for their flagship sedan soon discovered rust bubbling up on wheel arches, trunk lids, even critical suspension components. And how can we forget about the infamous airmatic nightmares? Compressors failed, airbags leaked, sensors broke, and whole systems collapsed, literally. Many proud S-Class owners walked outside one morning only to find their cars squatting in the driveway like they'd given up on life. And as if that wasn't enough, the self-leveling suspension sometimes stayed active even when the car was off, draining the battery flat overnight. Yes, the W220 was so committed to engineering perfection that it killed itself fighting crosswinds in the middle of the night. By the mid-2000s, Consumer Reports called the W220 one of the least reliable luxury cars on the market. For Mercedes, once synonymous with bulletproof reliability, this was humiliating to say the least. Number 4. Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG Black Series. Imagine taking a ridiculously fast convertible and then locking it in a garage with a team of engineers who've had way too much coffee. That's basically how the Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG Black Series was born. It didn't just break the mold, it shredded it, set it on fire, and then charged you over $300,000 for the privilege of owning it. See, AMG didn't just tweak the standard SL65, which was introduced in 2004 for the sake of a facelift. No. They completely rebuilt it to create one of the craziest sports cars the automaker has ever made. The folding convertible roof? Gone. In its place, there was a carbon fiber fixed roof with an integrated roll bar, lowering the roofline and chopping weight. The smooth, elegant body of the SL? Replaced with flared fenders so wide they looked like the car had been hitting the gym. A massive diffuser, a low front lip ready to scrape on anything taller than an ant, and a retractable rear spoiler that popped up after 75 miles per hour like a middle finger to aerodynamics. The result was over 550 pounds lighter than the standard SL, proof that AMG wasn't playing around. But the real over-engineering flex came with the chassis. Mercedes didn't just stiffen the suspension, they threw in a full coilover setup with adjustable shocks, redesigned spring links, wider front and rear tracks, and steering so sharp you could slice bread with it. Add in a 3-stage stability control system, and suddenly you had a car that wasn't just powerful, but shockingly precise. And then there's the engine. Oh boy. A twin-turbocharged 6.0-liter V12 hand-built and tuned to 661 horsepower and a monstrous 738 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, a quarter mile in under 12, and a top speed of 200 miles per hour. And all of it was funneled through a 5-speed automatic, because Mercedes, in peak over-engineering fashion, decided to stick with a gearbox that seemed more luxury sedan than track monster. And somehow, it worked. But maybe the best part of the SL65 Black Series isn't even the numbers, it's the presence. The Black Series has the kind of design that stops you in your tracks, even if you don't care about cars. Those massive fenders with their angry air vents, the aggressive coupe profile, the quad exhaust blasting through a race-ready diffuser. It didn't just look fast, it looked dangerous. Like it might bite if you got too close. And here's the thing though, Mercedes only built 350 of them, that's it. Which makes the Black Series not just rare, but practically mythical today. And in a world where V12s are disappearing, it feels like the last great over-engineered Mercedes out there. Before we reveal the final 3, don't forget to hit the like button and comment below. Which over-engineered Mercedes from the 2000s you love the most? Number 3. Mercedes-Benz SL Class R230. Did you know Mercedes spent much of the early 2000s trying to build a car that could be everything at once? That car was the R230 SL, a luxury roadster that wasn't content with just good looks or a powerful V8. Instead, it came loaded with technology so complex that some owners joked you needed a PhD in hydraulics just to put the roof down. At first glance, the SL was stunning. A sleek convertible with a steel folding hardtop that disappeared into the trunk at the press of a button. On paper, it was the perfect mix of coupe and roadster. But behind that magic was an army of hydraulic pumps, actuators, all of which had to move in perfect choreography. If even one of those parts slipped out of sync, the roof could jam halfway, leaving you stuck in a parking lot with your car looking like it was mid-transformation into a transformer. Over-engineered? Absolutely. Practical? Not always. Then came active body control, or ABC suspension. Mercedes wanted the SL to glide like an S-Class yet corner flat like a Porsche. The solution was a hydropneumatic suspension that constantly adjusted to keep the car level, no matter the road or the speed. It was a marvel of engineering, the kind of system that made test drivers grin. But in the real world, it added layers of complexity: pumps, fluid reservoirs, valves, sensors, and computers. When it worked, it was magical. When it failed, the car could sag, lean, or bounce like a lowrider on bad hydraulics. Repairs often ran into the thousands. Mercedes engineers went deep into roof sealing and drainage systems, trying to make sure rainwater didn't ruin the show. But clogged drains or worn seals turned the trunk into a fish tank, right above sensitive electronics that controlled the very same roof. That's a recipe for disaster, to say the least. And let's not forget the comfort toys. Electrically adjustable seats with memory, massage, ventilation, folding headrests, each powered by its own little control module. It all felt luxurious when new. But when those modules started arguing with each other, owners ended up with a dashboard full of warning lights over something as simple as adjusting the seat. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the paradox of the R230SL. On one hand, it was breathtaking. A car that pushed boundaries, showed off Mercedes' over-engineering muscle, and made every drive feel like a showcase of technology. On the other, it was a reminder that more moving parts often mean more things to break. Number 2. Mercedes-Benz C-Class, W204. Mercedes-Benz C-Class in the early 2000s had built a reputation for being, any guesses? Extremely unreliable. The so-called baby Benz was supposed to be the entry ticket to German luxury. Instead, the W203 generation spent more time in repair shops than on driveways. Owners complained about flaky electrics, rust, and interiors that looked tired before the warranty was up. For a brand that once built the indestructible W123, this was embarrassing. So when it came time to design the next one, Mercedes-Benz basically said, "All right, no more shortcuts, let's overdo this thing." And thus, the W204 C-Class, launched in 2006, became a case study in how Mercedes tried to over-engineer its way back to respectability. Now let's start with the body. Most compact sedans at the time were built like beer cans with wheels. The W204, it was built with 70% high-strength steel, giving it a stiffer chassis than some sports cars of the era. Mercedes couldn't stomach another cheap Benz headline. Add in 7 airbags as standard, with more optional, and the W204 instantly set new safety benchmarks. For a family sedan, this was borderline obsessive. Then there was the suspension. Mercedes was never going to do that. So they gave the W204 a 3-link front suspension with twin lower links, the kind of setup engineers drool over but accountants hate. Why? Because it made the car drive with surgical precision, even though 90% of C-Class buyers just wanted a comfy commuter. And for those who wanted more, you could option Airmatic adaptive dampers, trickle-down tech from the S-Class in a compact sedan. Inside, the obsession continued. The W204 introduced better interior quality materials and a dashboard that finally stopped peeling after 3 summers. The electronics were reworked to be more robust after the W203 disaster, with features like Command infotainment that actually worked without constant rebooting. Even small details, like more corrosion-resistant materials and better wiring harnesses, showed Mercedes had learned its lesson. This car needed to last, and if all this didn't scream overkill to the faces of critics, Mercedes-Benz gave the world the C63 AMG in 2008. While BMW gave you modest inline sixes in the 3 Series, Mercedes decided their compact sedan needed a 6.2-liter naturally aspirated V8. That's 451 horsepower in a car barely bigger than a Civic. The C63 AMG wasn't just a faster trim, it was an overbuilt monster that forced engineers to redesign the suspension, widen the track, and throw on bigger brakes. It was excessive, loud, and completely unnecessary, which is exactly why people loved it. Number 1. Mercedes-Benz E-Class W211. Did you know Mercedes spent $2.2 billion developing the W211 E-Class? Not advertising, not racing, just designing one sedan. Yes, they weren't drunk. That really was the goal, to build an over-engineered masterpiece. You see, the old W210 is often referred to as the worst E-Class ever, especially due to the rust problems and quality control issues. So, Mercedes handed the engineers a blank check and said, "Build the most advanced sedan the world has ever seen." And boy, did they take that seriously. By the time the W211 launched in 2002, it was packed with so many new systems it felt less like a car and more like a rolling science project. Take the brakes, for example. Normal cars use hydraulics. You push the pedal, fluid moves, the car stops, simple. But Mercedes thought, nah, too boring. Instead, they gave us Sensotronic Brake Control, SBC, a brake-by-wire system where the pedal talked to a computer and the computer decided how much brake force each wheel got. On paper, genius. In practice, well. When it worked, it gave you perfect stops, hill hold assist, and even a soft stop feature so passengers didn't spill their coffee. When it didn't, the repair bill could make grown men cry. And the brakes weren't the only area where engineers flexed. The W211 also got a brand new 4-link front suspension, plus an optional Airmatic air suspension that adjusted ride height and firmness on the fly. Comfort mode? You're gliding on velvet. Sport mode? It's stiffened up like an AMG. Rough road? The whole car rises on command. It was like having 3 cars in one. And then there were the ultra-reliable engines. The E500's 5.0-liter V8 was the star. Smooth, powerful, and nearly unbreakable to the point of being considered bulletproof. The E320's V6 was another gem, proving that under all the complicated electronics, Mercedes still knew how to build unkillable drivetrains. But perhaps the greatest trick of all was how Mercedes used all this tech to quietly make the W211 one of the safest sedans of its era. It featured advanced safety systems like Pre-Safe, which could prepare the car for an accident by tightening belts and adjusting seats. Other features included Distronic Plus, adaptive cruise control system, intelligent light system for better visibility, electronic stability program, active brake assist, and attention assist to monitor driver fatigue. The E-Class wasn't just transportation, it was a guardian angel on wheels. But here's the thing, people still look back at the W211 as one of the last truly overbuilt Mercedes sedans. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you won't want to miss. As always, thanks for watching.